All right, everybody. Well, good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are at and whenever you are watching this. My name is Bharon Hoag. I am the Executive Director of the Chiropractic Defense Council and OneChiropractic, and we are here for another episode of the State of Chiropractic. And I'm very excited, and I'm going to be very transparent about our guest today because there was a period of time that I thought I knew what I didn't know and found out that there was a lot I needed to know. And Dr. Wolfson was very gracious and very patient with me as I went through the learning curve of understanding this amazing organization now, NCMIC, which everyone should know that name in the United States specifically. But Dr. Wolfson, thank you so much for your willingness to chat with me today.
Certainly my honor and pleasure, Bharon.
Well, just to give a little backstory. So everyone that knows me knows that I'm not short of an opinion, and I definitely have the willingness to be able to say what I think. And so it's been a journey with you specifically, Dr. Wolfson, as you and I have gotten to know each other over the last couple of years by having meetings and having
Bharon,
questions. And
Wayne is better.
yeah, okay, Wayne. All right, we'll call you Wayne then. But I want to thank you for that personally, even on record here, for taking the time to help me better understand NCMIC, kind of the mission of the organization, kind of who you are, how introducing me to the leadership of your team. You guys have always been so respectful and so willing to answer my questions. And as I pitch ideas, like I'm still trying to get you into Canada, I'm not going to stop pushing that. I know you're not ready, but we're going to keep pushing. I'm just very thankful for who you guys are and what you do. And my goal today is for people to better understand a little bit who you are and your role within the organization. And then I want to get into the vastness of what you guys do, because you're known as a malpractice company, but as I found out when you handed me the book of all of your different services that you offer, you're far more than that, which really excited me with the diversity that you have to be able to strengthen and help chiropractors in every aspect of their practice and life, for that matter. So if you can just give us a minute, a little bit about your story so people can get familiar with who you are if they don't know that, and then we'll dig in a little bit to the organization.
Sure. Just a little bit about my journey. I grew up outside New York City, went to college in the South at the University of Tennessee. I would say that I was a pre-degree, kind of looking for what I wanted to do. My brothers and fathers were all Johns Hopkins graduates and very medically oriented, really didn't know anything about chiropractic. I was thinking about going to optometry school, and this is the mid-70s. And my parents had a friend who was a chiropractor who practiced in the Bronx. I was home one summer, and he said, if you're thinking about optometry school, maybe you ought to come and visit my office. So I went to see Dr. Pasqua's office. Patients naturally raved about him. Again, as I said, didn't know anything about chiropractic. He made some recommendations on schools. I graduated college and went off to the Palmer College of Chiropractic in Davenport, Iowa. That was 1974. Worked my way through school and was fortunate that didn't come out with any kinds of loans that our students now come out with. But really, when I graduated in 1977, I would have gone anywhere where there was an opportunity. I put an ad in Chiropractic Economics, that journal, and Bharon, it said, highly motivated, recent Palmer graduate seeks associateship with partnership or buyout opportunity. And I would have gone anywhere. And the gentleman that answered my ad, I was a week out of school, was in Winter Park, Florida. He called a telephone number of my father, because we didn't have cell phones in those days. And I was on the road taking the Florida board. It was the first board that was being given after my graduation. And I took the Florida board. He happened to be in Florida. I met him on a Friday between patients. He was seeing patients all morning long. And at the end of our conversation, he said, well, if you'd like to think about having another discussion after the weekend, give me a call. I said, I don't need to think about it. Let's plan on it. I met his wife on Monday. And on Tuesday, he said, would you like to come into practice with me?
That's awesome.
I mean, I was a week out of school. He paid He paid me $150 a week, and I was naturally overpaid at that time. But anyway, we had a great run together. He was true to his word. He and I became 50% partners. We grew that practice. We ended up with 4 practices, 4 locations in the Orlando area. And as you know, out the Orlando area grew with Disney, and our practices grew. As I said, we practiced 15 years together, and then we were kind of going in a little different circles or whatever. And so we split off our practices at that time. I went and practiced in downtown Orlando. He remained in Winter Park, which is basically 5 miles away, just a suburban area. So my journey, one thing that he taught me from day one was you always want to be insured with NCMIC. That was one of his takeaways. But anyway, I got to know NCMIC during my practice years. I practiced many, many years, 38 years actually, very, very actively in a high volume type practice. We were very busy and very blessed. But the way that I built my practice was getting involved with both the profession and the community. So I was a joiner of organizations, whether it was being on the YMCA board, the Orlando Museum, the Visitors and Bureau, the Visitors and Convention Bureau. I became the chairman of the Orlando Chamber of Commerce, which was one of the 6 largest chambers in the country. Served on the Valencia Community College Board of Trustees, and so on and so forth within the community. And then within the profession, I was appointed by 2 different governors, served 11 years on the Board of Chiropractic. I got involved with the Federation of Chiropractic Licensing Boards, served 2 terms as president there, was a director of the National Board of Chiropractic Examiners, served as a site team evaluator for CCE. So just a whole host of things that were all a background for me. And I continued to, participate in continuing education, whether it was orthopedics, nutrition, acupuncture, MUAs, whatever there was that was out there, I wanted to do. And also I looked for mentors who would help me along the way. So as I look back, it was the first guy who got me involved, Val Pasqua, Jimmy Glisson, who was a chiropractor state senator here in Florida, Ed Williams, who ran the FCA for years, Jerry McAndrews, Mike Pedigo, Ken Padgett, Carl Cleveland, Horace Elliott, Lou Sportelli, just a whole host of things. And with practice management, I went to Parker. I was a brown bagger, and then I did Markson and Singer, Lloyd Latch, Chuck Gibson, Kirby Landis, Noel Lloyd, Renaissance with Felicio and Riekman. But those were my backgrounds, and I developed a skill level, that kind of went along with it. So that was kind of my introduction to the profession and what I did over the years.
That's incredible. And as people are listening to this, I think sometimes when you hear resumes or a list of accomplishments from an individual, you focus on the accomplishments that they did. But for me, when I hear that, all that does is tell me perspective. Every single one of those things that you achieved and those people that you mentored with and all the things you've done, they all gave you a different perspective of life and how another human being interacts with another. And that's to me where life experience really helps us to become effective in the situations and the opportunities we have in front of us, are because of getting involved, being engaged, learning and listening to other people that may be what we consider to be ahead of us in life in some capacity. And we learn from them on how they achieved their success so that we could pull those principles into our own life and hopefully achieve the success we're after. So I love it. I love all of that. Now, how did you go from all of that to getting to where you are with NCMIC now?
And as you say all that, I learned in all of those experiences. In some ways, I was fortunate. I married late in life and had a child late in life. And as a result, I was able to focus. I mean, my primary focus was building and developing a practice and really being involved in my community. So with all of those experiences and skill sets, when I completed my service with the Federation of Chiropractic Licensing Boards and the National Board, NCMIC, those that were running the company, they kind of looked over and they saw the things which I had done relative to practice and business and community building, and they thought that I might be of some benefit to them. And as you know, and started to say, they're a very, very interesting company. And as I said, I found out about them my first week in practice, that here's the company. But, for those that don't know, the company was founded in 1946 by chiropractors for chiropractors when no one would insure chiropractors for their malpractice experience. So a practitioner would pay $15 a month and have $5,000 worth of coverage. So there weren't many cases at that time, but that's what it was for. And actually, the first office of NCMIC was in Webster City, Iowa, in Carl Cleveland's grandparents' office.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's
It was
amazing. Yeah.
it was in their building on the second floor. And here we are 77 years later. We started with humble beginnings. There was steady growth along the way with terrific management and outstanding products and services. We were a monoline company, meaning we had one product, malpractice insurance, but we had steady growth, and people who we insured became very, very comfortable with us and what we did. They liked what we did, and they asked us to do more. So at this point, we continue to grow. And now at this point, in the late 1990s, as doctors were requesting we provide more services for them, we added some other insurance products to our line. So we've added a long-term disability line, a business owners and general liability policy, personal lines, whether it's your home and auto, other insurance services, meaning umbrellas, flood, workers' compensation, earthquakes, data breach, whatever it was needed that chiropractors wanted, we provided for them. And we were a trusted name. And in a similar vein, in the early 2000s, our policyholders were asking for assistance with financial services. So we added our original chiropractic company only had chiropractors on the board, and we needed to add other expertise. So we added other board members, which included bankers, insurance people, lawyers, accountants, who all had those skill sets. And we added financial services to include merchant processing, business credit cards with rich rewards, no annual fees. We do business loans, equipment loans, working capital loans. I talked about our merchant processing business. So last year, we did over $2 billion in merchant processing business. That's a lot of swipes.
Yeah, buddy.
A lot of offices. And, our way of growing is obviously we're totally focused on serving the chiropractic profession, but how can we make it better? We're also white labeling credit cards for banks that are out there at this point, which was a way for us to grow. And one thing that I was really, really proud of during the COVID crisis that we had was our doctors were coming to us and saying they were having difficulty in getting PPP loans, the Paycheck Protection Plan. NCMIC became one of 12 non-banks in the country that were certified to become a PPP lender. And we served about 1,000 doctors. Wow. Over 10 $10 million that went directly to chiropractors, all of which were paid back other than one loan because the doctor passed away regretfully. But, what we found was nobody knew what was happening during those times, and banks were focused on their biggest customers.
Right.
Chiropractors were kind of at the end of the road, and I know that we saved many, many practices
That's
as a
amazing.
result of our work and just walking people through the process of how you get it done. This is what you're going to need. These are the records. Let us hold your hand and do it. And that's how we do business on a daily basis. That's what NCMIC is really about.
Well, yeah,
So
when I saw you in Florida, I think it was last year, we sat down and that's when you put the book in front of me and said, well, here's really all the product suite that we have. And so I did. I immediately changed my car insurance is now through you guys. I did my business insurance for my clinic and all of that. I mean, most people watching this know that I'm very good friends with Dr. Stu Hoffman, who is ChiroSecure. And so this is another example that you don't have to pick sides. You can be friends with everybody. And like
absolutely.
this isn't a contest and this isn't a one's right, one's wrong. And so, I use ChiroSecure for malpractice for my doctors and I use you guys for everything else because you have those offering services just to keep everything in chiropractic, right? That's another huge thing that I wish our profession understood. So we're on this massive campaign right now of trying to explain to people the power of organizing. That I don't like the word unify because I don't know that chiropractic's ever going to unite or unify because we haven't since 1875 or 1895 rather, and I don't see us doing it today. But what we can do is organize, and it's something that our profession really has never done on a large scale. But the reason we don't do that is because our profession is so very opinionated, whether it's technique, whether it's philosophy, whether it's therapies, whether it's what state you come from, what school you went to, what technique you use. There's all these reasons that chiropractors choose to not want to come together and point fingers. And we're trying to explain, our campaign, we're saying, 10,000 chiropractors moving in one direction are unstoppable. And that's been our history. When we do organize, and the few times, whether it be the Wilkes case, which obviously your founder was very, very involved in on television and explaining how we were separate and distinct and all of those things. When we do come together, we are very powerful, but then we tend to segregate again and we go into our little pockets and holes. That's one of the things that I've also loved about you because I'm a very transparent guy. You know where I stand and where my relationships lie, but I want to work with everybody because I think that's the only way that this is actually going to work, where chiropractic holds its rightful place in the healthcare delivery system worldwide. Is when we stop all the games and the finger pointing and the straights and mixers and vitalistic versus mechanist, all that garbage that just wastes time and creates more division than it does create opportunity to organize and collaborate to do something significant. So I just thank you guys for that. I thank you for your openness and willingness to do that as well.
Well, and I commend you in a similar fashion. I mean, chiropractors, by and large, for 99.5% of what they do, pretty much agree on what chiropractic
Totally
is.
agree.
And
Yep.
I mean, that's what we need to focus on, and these philosophical arguments, and that's one thing that I'm really proud about NCMIC. People have at times said that we were philosophical. We have no philosophy in how we insure. We insure to the scope of practice.
Yeah.
Whatever the state says you can do, we're going to insure you in that fashion, and we're going to defend you to the end of the earth. And we're fortunate to be able to have the resources to be able to do it. And that's what we're going to do because it's a doctor's reputation that's on the line.
And one thing I want to point out as you say that, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think this is a very important point that people need to understand. One of the very big differences with NCMIC, because of the way that you guys work, the way that you are able to grow revenue from your own revenue, you guys are not a face for a Lloyd's of London or some other insurance. You guys are your own. It's your own money that you're messing with and playing with, which gives you the ability to then pick those battles that, although it may not make economical sense, but it's a battle that needs to be fought and it needs to be defended. You guys will continue to do that. And I've really looked into it since we've had that conversation, and the evidence does bear that to be true, that you guys have done that, that you're not the type of organization that's just going to settle because economically it doesn't make sense, when the chiropractor is in a truthful and honest place. And this is a topic that needs to be defended to be able to validate something in the chiropractic space. And so that was a unique differentiator between you and a lot of the other players out there. And I think that needs to be really recognized.
Well, and thank you for recognizing it. And we think it's a big deal because, as I said, it is the doctor's reputation in their communities. And, it would be easy to roll over on cases and say, okay, here's $20,000, go away. We spend multiples of that kind of money to defend our doctors, but we'll do it until the end of the earth. And we're lucky enough to have the resources to do it. And the case management begins in the middle and it ends with us. It's not someone else that's doing it. We, as you said, we are the insurance company. And, with brokers, I don't really believe that, insurance companies will listen to a broker who comes along and says, hey, you need to go try this case. They're looking at the bottom line. Those big companies are looking at the bottom line for their investors and what it's going to produce for them. So, I mean, that's one of the big things that is different about NCMIC. And with that, we also insure in 50 states. A lot of companies will cherry pick and say, we're making money here in Illinois, we're making money in Iowa, but we're not making money in Guam, or we're not making money in Montana. When you have just a few insured lives in those places, it's difficult. But that's our philosophy. We're going to insure you if you're here. So
that's awesome. And I've had firsthand experience. Again, obviously operating in multiple different countries. Like in Australia, there's a large company called Guild that really has about 70% of the chiropractic market. And, working with them during the COVID days and with some of the other issues that they have there, it's been interesting, to learn about what they're willing to fight and what they're not willing to fight. And they've been great to work with because we've kind of mitigated each other's risk, where us and our attorneys will step in and work on things to a point, and then we'll bring Guild in when it gets to a certain level. But there's just communication. It works really well. And so it's nice to work with organizations. And we've talked on a couple of cases and looked at things. And it's been from my perspective in defending the rights of practicing chiropractors. I know sometimes it's hard for state organizations and even in some scenarios, a malpractice carrier, it's a bit outside of the scope of the malpractice coverage, but it's been amazing to be able to have the relationship that we have with these groups, to be able to hold those conversations and make sure that no one's stepping on each other's toes, that there's always communication. We don't do anything that ultimately removes them from coverage with their malpractice carrier because we did something that shouldn't have been done. So it's been a phenomenal relationship. So again, thank you for your guys' willingness. You guys have been always amazing. When I send an email or pick up the phone, there's always a response. And that means a lot to me. That hasn't always been the case with organizations when we work together. So thank
you. And Bharon, I like to say, I'm the throat to choke. I'm the one who you're going to get. And we want to be responsive. And that's what we're about. We're about not only our products, but our customer service. And our tagline, which is behind me, we take care of our own. And that has to do with not only our doctors, but our employees and our community. Those are important things to us. And then we're always looking, we have a term around the office called HODM. How can we help our doctors do more? Helping our doctors do more. That's what we're always looking for. And we want to make it easier for them. So, and for instance, on the financial services, someone will come to us with a request to borrow money for equipment. We at NCMIC obviously understand a $200,000 loan for school. Most bankers don't get that.
Right.
I serve on the board of a community bank, and I can tell you our loan committee, if someone came in with something like that and
their debt to income ratio,
they would take that it's over. So what we do, we understand them well, and we know that our doctors are going to pay back and be appreciative and be successful. And We guarantee that they're going to get an answer within a couple of hours. And sometimes the best answer, if I'm not going to get a yes to get a loan, tell me no quickly. Don't hold me out there, and then suggest what I might do to get a loan. So, those are again, some of the things, the kinds of things that we do.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about your foundation, because this is another not intentionally kept secret about the money that you guys have put back into chiropractic outside of the services and the loans and all the stuff we've already been talking about. But you guys have such a passion for research and a desire to fund it, to make sure. I'm great friends with Dr. Heidi Havik, and I know she is forever grateful for the money that you guys have given her over the last 5 years for her to be able to do some of the most groundbreaking stuff available. But you give to anyone that's doing something that is going to better the message of chiropractic. Explain to me a little bit about that and what your guys' philosophy is of the way that you give back to the profession.
Yeah, well, our foundation was started in 2004. FCER went bankrupt, and there really wasn't anyone who was raising any kind of money or doing anything. And we had helped FCER over the years. We were probably the largest funders to them, but they went defunct. And Lou Sportelli actually took on the foundation, said, my goal will be to raise $25 million so that we could give away $1 million a year and never touch the corpus. And that has been his goal. And, in the 90s and the early 2000s, chiropractors made benefits with litigation, legislation. And now we really believe that the next frontier is in research. How do we demonstrate the effectiveness and the safety of the care which we're rendering, so that chiropractors can be included in programs? So with Lou's charge, he's gone out and worked with the profession. And currently, in that initial goal of his of $25 million, we're at about $17 million that we have on hand. And it goes up and down as the market goes up and down. But we've done a lot of good things with it. So, you talk about Heidi. We're very ecstatic about her neuroplasticity studies. And we are, as you may know, we're the largest funder to her for her research at the New Zealand College. We're also very proud of providing support to Stephanie Sullivan at Life and her work on depression. We've assisted Monica Smith at Life West and her aging and telomere study. We've got a grant going on at Harvard relative to treatment with chiropractic for headaches. Excited about a study that's at Rand, which basically is there to determine the value of maintenance chiropractic care. So, we're looking to go to big research institutions, or wherever the studies are being done. A study being done at the University of South Florida with Nate Shillincati on posture. One that we're exceedingly proud of is at the University of Minnesota. So in the, I guess it was about 2000, early 2000s, Northwestern Chiropractic College had a research program that was being closed. We assisted two of their main researchers, DC PhDs, Gert Bronford and Ronnie Evans, who, when that program closed, they went over to the University of Minnesota. They needed some seed money. We provided $600,000 in seed money. And as you know, they have recently gotten a grant from NIH for $14.7 million.
That's incredible.
So, I mean, we've tried to do studies like that. We've assisted Christine Gertz with her work at Duke. We've actually got a fellow at Duke who's a DC receiving a PhD. We've talked about the different programs that we're doing at both Harvard and Yale. We think as I talked about research, we also think that public policy is important. So for the past 5 years, we have been funding DCs who are getting MPHs at Yale in public policy, who are then going on to, work at the University of Maryland or in state government. We think that these are important areas as well as research. We've got a research activity going on now with Deed Harrison and CBP, his programs, which are very, very exciting. So we know that the research is going to demonstrate what we do. When I got out of school, everything chiropractic was anecdotal.
Yeah.
Well, I know I treated that kid, had enuresis and wet the bed for every night for the last month. And after treating him, the kid got better. Well, we need to be able to demonstrate
100%.
that. And, those are the kinds of things that we're doing relative to research. And I'm sure there's just a ton of stuff that goes on. And unfortunately, we're able to provide the seed funds in a lot of ways. We're not like big pharma.
Yeah.
We don't have millions and millions of dollars, but I can tell you last year, we funded over $1 million in projects, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Another really big deal that the foundation has done since getting started in 2005, we have funded over 70 DCs who have received advanced degrees past their DCs.
Oh,
whether
great.
it be an MPH, PhDs. I mean, you're seeing all these DCs now who are getting PhDs, many of them, and we're not funding them in full,
Sure.
but we are providing grants to them that, as they tell their story, they say, these are things that we could not have done without you.
Yeah.
So things that we're really working at.
That's fantastic.
We believe in giving back and, walking the walk and living the talk. Heidi told me a funny story. She said, you guys have been terrific. I can tell you there's someone who in their brochures advertised giving to me. Well, they gave me $100 once,
Yeah.
4 years ago. And she said, it's just, but however it comes. So we're looking forward to doing more in the future, but we're proud of what we have done.
Yeah. The purpose of this podcast is to help people understand the work that's being done. And the reason I wanted you on here is I wanted to highlight the vastness and defending the rights of practicing chiropractors comes in a million different forms. Yes, we're on the front line dealing with pediatric issues in Australia, x-ray rights in Canada, censorship issues that are all over the world. But I just love that we have these organizations in our profession that most people don't realize that are doing the business the right way. They're perpetuating their own growth by intelligently managing their resources, which is completely what you guys have done, probably better than anyone else in our profession, in my opinion. And I want people to know about that. And I think that's fantastic. So kudos to you guys for sure.
And that comes from a great management team who understand business.
Yep.
But they also appreciate chiropractic. And that goes not only with those people, but those are the type of people that we will use in our litigation to make sure that they understand chiropractic specifically. And you and I have talked about, I mean, for the last 25 years, we've been doing a defense counsel seminar where we train the lawyers that we use. Generally, in most communities, we're using the best medical malpractice lawyers in the community that ensure that or do the work for the hospitals, et cetera, but they don't have an expertise in chiropractic and they need to understand chiropractic. We teach that to them. They end up having friends who are doing similar work across the country and can share. And I mean, every year we have a couple of hundred attorneys who attend our programs to learn that. And as you talk, we talk a little bit about the foundation. I mean, I get excited about this because there's so many things that we're doing, but also the support of associations,
Mhm.
of our students, of our colleges. Again, we don't just talk about it, we live it. I mean,
Yeah.
you've been to every state association
Yeah.
across the world.
Yeah.
And we know when we go to those meetings that there aren't going to be that many prospects
Yeah.
for customers, but we need to be there.
Yeah.
We need to show up because if we don't show up, nobody else is going to
Yeah.
show up, and we need to support them.
I
You know,
agree. Yep. That's incredible. All right. Well, my last question for you, because I've already sucked a lot of time from you. From your perspective, what are you seeing in the profession? What are you seeing with the type of cases that you guys are representing? Are there any, this is a question I get all the time, Bharon, what's the threat? What's the trends? And my go-to answer is the threats are not from outside our profession. They've always been from within our profession because we fail to organize. But from that standpoint, there's still trends that we see. Like we have pop-ups of stroke things that we see from time to time. I know documentation is always number one whenever there's an issue because we've never been able to standardize that across chiropractic. But from your standpoint, what are you guys seeing for those watching that these are the trends of what we're seeing when these cases are coming to be and the types of things we're defending right now?
well, I think that people are cognizant that the claims and the judgments are much, much higher than they used to be. So a case that, might have been 20,000 might now be 5 times that or whatever. And similarly, a case that's $1 million, these atomic verdicts that are out there that you read about all over the country, what they call the bad baby cases. So those are trends. I mean, we certainly, people talk about CVAs. We see them and we try them regularly and are very, very successful with them. I mean, we truly are. The research is out there to demonstrate what happens in these cases, and we do very, very well with them. I mean, I'm excited about the new opportunities for chiropractors, all the different things that they can now do. When I got out and I put that ad in the journal, so what were my opportunities? Your daughter decided that she was going to be a solo practitioner because she knew that her dad could run her practice and teach her what to do. So she's unusual, but the opportunities now that you could go into VA, you could go into research, you could go into teaching, you could join a multidisciplinary practice, you could be solo, you could associate. I mean, I'm very, very proud of that. The residencies that are now available, amazing. And those are things that we've also assisted with. I'm really excited about what's going on in the colleges and, with COVID and how we've learned how to teach and what can happen in the educational systems to make it better, that people will become competent and capable, but they may not spend as much seat times.
Yeah,
So, I mean, I think that that's really exciting for
it is
what's
very
going,
exciting. Yeah,
so the future is bright for the next 75 years.
I
And with
agree.
our 75th anniversary, we're looking forward to 75 more years, and the future beyond. There was one thing that I failed, there are 100 things that we could talk about, but
Yeah.
one thing that I'm really proud about NCMIC and a real differentiator is that each year for the last 25 years, we've given a dividend to our policyholder. We've returned over $167 million to our policyholders
That's incredible. Yeah.
that nobody else has done,
Yeah.
while still being able to do these things for our foundation, for research, for our associations.
Yeah.
Hadn't talked about a speakers bureau. There's
Yeah.
so much
I know there's a
that's
ton.
there.
I know.
That's why we've got to get you out to NCMIC. We got to get you to Des Moines and
I
visit.
still need to come see it. We talk about it every year, but I definitely would love to come see the mother office and meet more of your team. And I'll be honest with you. And again, people know I'm a straight shooter. I have opinions. I haven't met a single person that works in your organization that I haven't really enjoyed communicating with. and I've met quite a few of them, and I'm excited to sit down with you guys again when we're in Florida in August and get caught up on stuff that's going on as well. But listen, Doc, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. This was so much fun, again, to be reminded of some of the stuff. I learned a couple things, again, that I didn't know. And I just appreciate you. And I am excited to serve alongside of you guys in this amazing time in chiropractic. And I agree with you. I think the future is bright. If our profession continues to choose to work together on things rather than argue about the very few things that we disagree on, man, we have such opportunities right now to really gain a better foothold in the healthcare delivery system all over the world. And I know that NCMIC is doing their part. OneChiropractic is going to continue to do our part. And I love where those intersect, because it's a joy and honor to work with you, my friend.
And congratulations to you, and thank you for all that you've done for so many years to advance the profession. You've made a difference, and we all know it. So thanks, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon.
All right. Sounds good, my friend. God bless.
Be safe. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.